Oh, that was the naval intelligence. I, I, re- I can't forget that day because two men in black suits and hats came very officiously with their IDs, and they said, according to the record, you purchased a radio that can get shortwave back in November because we're all required to report, and which we did. And so my father said, come in, I'd like to show it to you. He said, no, you bring it out. So he brought it out, and it was on the ground, so he said, I'll bring a table, and put it on the table. And the next thing you know, this one fella gets a screwdriver and rips off the back. Not unscrew it, just rips it off. And then he sticks his hand in and starts pulling out wires. So my father, in his very gentle way, said, let me help you. So he walked back, and he comes back with a hatchet that he uses to chop wood. We had a stove outside. And these two men thought that he was going to come out and attack them if they reached for their guns. And he says, no, just stand by. And he went and just whacked this radio and just broke it to pieces. And these two men were stunned. They didn't know what to do. They just walked away. And I had the job of collecting it and throwing it away. It was our prized possession. He had just bought that in November for Christmas gift to the family. And we tried it out. We could catch San Francisco and Los Angeles and China and Japan, and it's exciting. Well, he considered himself a good American. Although he was born in Japan, he got over at the age of 2. But such was life. But the people of Hawaii were extremely good to us. For example, none of us went into the camps other than the so-called leaders, the movers and shakers, school principal or the head of the Chamber of Commerce, that type. So a handful from Hawaii did go into the camps, but the great bulk of us carried on as ever. And during that period before I put on the uniform, I was with a federal agency, civil defense agency. And I stayed up 24 hours a day if I wanted to. I had a pass that made it possible for me to walk around the streets after blackout. We had a curfew. All people had to be off the streets, other than the police officers and military and those of us who had the guards. When my father, on our departure, and I was a young man of 18 at that time, in all seriousness, he said, whatever you do, do not dishonor the family or the country. This country has been good to us. So if you must give your life, do so with honor. Now, I would find it difficult to tell my son, if you're going to give your life, do so with honor. But he did that without batting an eye, and I suppose he felt that all Japanese fathers would have the duty of saying that. But on the other hand, when on the eve of our first battle in Italy, I was then an assistant squad leader. So I gathered the men together and I said, what were your thoughts last night? Because this morning, in a few minutes, we're going to be crossing the line of departure. And everyone, in his own way, said the same thing. I hope I don't dishonor the family. I hope I don't bring any shame to them. I hope I don't turn out to be a coward. You know, this was the theme. They wanted to make certain that at the end, the family would be proud of them. Well, I think we demonstrated rather early that we were rather foolhardy, I think. And so other divisions would request our presence. So we were attached to many divisions. And we knew very well that if we went into a certain sector, we would be involved in some attack to lead the charge. And the casualties are high. This is something that I think a few of us in the military experience, just the officers. I recall about a month before I got into my last battle, all of the officers were called in by the company commander, and he did so at the direction of the colonel, and the colonel direction of someone else. And it was a strange meeting because he looked at us and says, "I'm going to ask you to raise your hand to take an oath." What's going on here? He says, "You must pledge that you will never discuss this meeting with anyone else." Go ahead. And all he said was, "The war is ending. However, we must keep up the pressure, because if we don't, it may drag on a little longer. So I expect you to keep up the pressure, keep up the fight, and let's hope that it ends soon. It may end tomorrow, it may end 2 weeks from now, a month from now." It ended about a month and a half from then.
Yet there's always one last person who gets shot or blown up.
And then when I was wounded, I called in my platoon sergeant, and I said, I don't know whether I should tell you this or not, but, and I related what had happened. So I'm telling you, the war is about to end. Take it easy, don't be heroic, take care of the men. He died the next morning, leading the charge. Coming home to Hawaii, oh, fabulous. It was not like Vietnam, where some of the men had to sneak in the dark in certain communities. In our case, we had luau's and parties all over the creation. But I did have a strange experience. I was sent to Oakland, and from there to get on one of these troop carrier ships, and the last 5 days on high seas. So I thought I'd better get a haircut to make myself look civilized. So I went into a barber shop, and this barber shop had 3 chairs, all empty, and the barbers are standing waiting for customers. So I walked in. This fella came up to me and said, "Are you Japanese?" I said, "No, I'm an American." But I said, "If you want to know, my father was born in Japan. We don't cut Jap hair. You know, the war is over, and I'm in my uniform with 4 rows of ribbons and a hook in my right hand." I was so tempted to smash him, but I figured if I did that, all the good that we may have achieved until then would go down the stream. So I just looked at him and I said, "I'm sorry for you." So when I got home, my hair was rather long. This year is the 50th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education, when schools were integrated, desegregated. The Army, incidentally, was integrated 6 years earlier by Harry Truman, President of the United States. And I've been told that one of the major reasons for that was the way not just the 442, but the Native Americans, the Puerto Ricans, 65th Regiment, and 92nd Division, the African Americans, the Filipinos, 1st Regiment, all of them fought valiantly. And he concluded that how can you keep it separate? And in 48, it was integrated. I'd like to believe that our military service played a role in bringing civil rights to the United States. I happened to be having lunch with the majority leader, Mike Mansfield. And with me were my father and 2 brothers. And so when the call came in from the President of the United States, and I took it while I was sitting there at lunch, I said, Mr. President, I'd be very happy to be there. My father will be joining me. And so the 4 of us went there. And it was an extraordinary moment because my father is a very gentle person, but he doesn't say much, but on occasions of this sort, he would get very talkative. But here he was very silent and didn't say a word. And when it was all over, as the routine in the White House, there were a whole mess of photographers there and TV cameras. And so they called me and said, how about making a statement? I said, no, this is my father's day. So to my surprise, he stood before the cameras and he said, I can now die. I've seen the president and my son has become a senator. He walked away.